I'm Alyssa and I wrote a book. Well, the first draft of one anyway. If you're anything like me, revision is where everything falls apart and you're left with the crumbling skeleton of a book that needs your constant attention to put it back together. Welcome to my series where I complete a major revision in 6 weeks. I ended up starting Act 1 in an evening session, which I find evening sessions to be just so cozy. Especially this one, it was like raining and I truly only wrote for the vibes. I think I wrote for like 30 minutes max. But then the next morning, which is today, I ended up just doing a 90-minute sprint, hopped on Abby Emmons's live, and ended up getting through 2 chapters. I'm hoping to get through Act 1 like today. There's no way that that is gonna happen. That would be so silly. To be fair though, Act 1 has the least amount of changes. So I predict Act 2, both of those chunks in Act 2 taking like multiple weeks. Whereas Act 1, like, it's mostly build up, and I had already had a lot of the build up anyway. I just need to like read through the build up and like see like, okay, does that still make sense given what's happening? And then add in like, I just added in like a half of a scene, you know, that kind of stuff. So yeah, progress is going well. I'm hoping I have time for 1, potentially 2 more 90-minute sprints today. I think what's hard about this is like not all chapters are created equally, especially in this revision. There are a couple chapters where like very minimal changes need to be made because the changes are only happening in one subplot, right? So there are some chapters where it's focused on something, especially in Act 1, where you're just kind of setting everything up. Once it gets into Act 2, everything's a little bit more intertwined. Like there's not a lot of setup happening anymore, so everything will need to change a little bit more. But here it's like there's whole scenes where I don't need to do anything. Chapter 4 might take me 5 minutes to read through and be like, yep, good, move on. Then chapter 5 might be like, okay, let's rewrite this whole thing. So not all chapters are created equally. I still feel like there is maybe a chance I could finish Act 1 in one day. That'd be crazy though. You know those exponential grids where it starts off very slow and then like halfway through it just like jolts up? I think that is what I'm facing because I wrote the first draft in a very strange way where I knew I was building up to something and I had a rough idea of like who that involved and like who needs to be built up. So the build up that I had like mostly works. Now I know what I'm actually building up to in a more specific way. So I knew like relatively what I was building up to. Chapters 1 through 5 were very fast. Probably took like 30 to 45 minutes per chapter, which I guess is not nothing. It's still like an amount of time. But chapter 6 is the only chapter I have left in Act 1. And I'm thinking I might try to crank it out tonight. I did just have a very long day of a lot of physical and emotional activity. I wasn't planning on writing today, but you know what arrived? My coffee cups that I will earn at the end of this vlog. Sorry, at the end of this act. That shows you where my mind is. I also feel so accomplished. Like that was kind of crazy how fast that was. I feel like I've been really dreading the revision. Act 2 Part 1 might be similar in the buildup, but I think there's a couple more scenes that need some significant changes. And then Act 2 Part 2 is where the bulk of the changes need to happen. Part 2, as per usual, is going to be the menace. Act 2 Part 2 and I have a tumultuous relationship, and that we hate each other. Because I know it's so important. Like, everyone needs to deal with what happened, and also whatever they do needs to lead them into the final conflict. I like the writing the conflicts. Writing this like internal struggle is hard. It's not even that it's boring. It's very interesting. I always feel very excited when I'm writing this part, but like to do it in a believable way that's satisfying to the reader and that also like foreshadows all these other things and like highlights how all of these characters need to react to what happened at the midpoint in a character like motivated way, and it also like all of them need to be motivated to do what they do in the ending, and that needs to be clear, and that needs to all happen in scenes on the page. So then that means I need to get like all my characters in the same scenes, and they need to be like doing all these things. It's just like a lot of work, which is going to happen. But it's this strange mix, which I think is always writing of like, I know it's gonna be a lot of work and it's gonna be stressful, but it's also like so exciting. Like what's happening, I can already feel it making the story stronger, and I'm excited to write these moments. So it's exciting, but it's also a lot of work. And for someone who is like 8,500% of other writers also working a job and like doing housework and where everything is like work, and then this is the fun thing, but it also feels like work, is also always a little bit of a struggle for me. Because I'm like, no, it's so exciting and I love it, but it's also using my creative mental energy, which is good, but like also like maybe I just want to break.